Seashells. Look, Mommy, I found another! I smiled and I tilted my sunglasses up, looking across the sandy shore to where my 7-year-old daughter, Hannah, stood. Her tiny hands holding the conch shell up over her head proudly like a trophy. That's awesome, Hen! What color is that one? I asked. Blue and white, she squeaked with delight. My left hand grabbed a wicker basket that was sitting next to me on the blanket, and I raised it up for her to come over and drop her last addition into the pile. Whoa, we must have thousands of them, Hannah squealed, as she looked down at the ones we had collected over the past week. When we get back home, we find a spot in my den to display all of them, I told her excitedly. That made her eyes even wider with joy as she ran back towards the lapping waves, eager to make her collection even bigger. Behind me, I heard an engine turn off and I tilted my head to see Jeffrey returning with everything loaded into the SUV. That didn't take long, I admitted, wishing that our time here wouldn't have to end.
I think I got everything, but before we hit the open road, would you mind doing a once-over? You know your brother would kill us if we left even a candy wrapper in his Malibu suite.
He said as he trudged down to the beach next to me. Oh, he needs to lighten up, I teased as he stood up and stretched, watching the midday sun crest the shores of the beach.
He's your brother,
Jeff reminded me as he kissed me on the cheek softly and I looked towards the waves. Daddy! 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 Hannah said as she ran towards him and leaped into his arms.
Hey, Pumpkin, I missed you too,
he said with a smile and he lifted her up and twirled her around. I smiled and started gathering up my things from the beach as Jeffrey glanced down at the wicker basket.
What's all this?
He asked in a hunched tone as he put our daughter back down, her toes wriggling into the sand once more. It's my collection! Mommy came up with the idea. She said they're called
Souvenirs?
Jeffrey guessed as he rummaged through the seashells. Yeah, that means that they're important, Hannah said with a big smile. He nodded knowingly and picked up one of the shell before saying,
You know, I bet you didn't know this, but these shells are also magical.
Hannah froze, her excitement for the assignment I had given her immediately skyrocketing. You mean like Thor and stuff? She asked excitedly.
Exactly like that, but way cooler. You see, if you hold the shell up to your ear, you can hear the ocean that it came from. It's almost like it can take you there,
Jeff told her. He scooped her up and gently nudged her close to him to give it a try. Hannah waited eagerly as he held the conch shell close to her braided head. She squinted as she struggled to hear it. I don't know if I can hear anything, Daddy, she said disappointedly. He paused and held it up to his own ear before frowning, shrugging.
All the noise from the ocean makes it hard to hear the magic. Besides, you can't really miss the ocean when it's right here, you nut.
He ruffled her hair as she giggled as they began to run around the beach, chasing each other. I stood there and smiled, sighing and wishing moments like these could last forever. After about another 5 minutes though, it was finally time to go, and Jeff guided our sobbing little girl to the back seat. But I don't want to leave, Hannah screamed. I know, none of us do, I said as I drove us back up the road to the beach house. My brother Martin had been kind enough to let us stay there, using his shares for the week. And it had literally been like disconnecting from reality. As far as vacations were concerned, it literally took the cake as my old favorite time. Beachfront property, no neighbors within miles, an all-access bar and a hot tub. There wasn't a single thing I could complain about. Try to distract her while I go make sure everything is locked up, I told Jeffrey as I hopped out and I did a walkthrough of Martin's property. I had to hand it to Jeff. Nothing seemed out of place. There was a little nook and cranny for everything that my brother wanted. Even one of the shells that Hannah had become fond of during our stay here. I paused and picked it up to listen to that familiar current again, just to get lost in the moment one last time. It was like a whisper, faint and sad, like a woman moaning. Come. I put the shell back down, a bit perplexed by the sound it had made, and then finished checking the house. Once I was done, it was finally time to drive home. On the drive, Hannah had finally calmed down and watched some DVDs. It was still another 5 hours before we could finally reach our home state. We stopped at a small seedy hotel just outside South California for the night. That was when Hannah got the inkling to start rummaging through a seashell collection and listening to different sounds that each made. I watched from the passenger seat with mild interest as Jeff ran up the front desk to pay. She was becoming more and more frustrated with each passing moment as she grabbed a shell, attempting to listen to the noise it made and slamming her fist down into the pile. Hey! What's wrong? I asked as I turned around in my seat and stared at her. Dead lights! None of these are working! Hannah screamed as she grabbed another handful and chucked them out of the window. Jeff came back not a moment too soon with our keycards, some of the distracted shells falling at his feet.
Hey now, what's the big deal?
He asked as he picked up one. They don't work, our daughter said angrily. He gave her a look and then held it up to his ear. I saw a look of surprise on his face. Then he tried it with another, and another.
Well, we can always get better ones when we come back.
He said with a shrug as he passed her a Snickers bar and added,
Come on, there's a storm on the way and we should get to bed.
Hannah dashed after him and made sure that all our car windows were up. Then all three of us wasted the rest of the evening watching old movies and eating pizza. A few hours later, once Hannah was sound asleep, Jeff pulled out his briefcase and unlatched it. What are you doing? I whispered as he took out his laptop.
I know you said no electronics during the trip, but this doesn't count, right?
He said as he logged into the internet. No, I just mean, what are you looking for? I asked as I snuggled closer to him. He typed in seashell resonance on Google and it pulled up an article about the way the shells make noise.
I knew it.
He mumbled. Knew what?
Right here, babe. It says the shape of the shell creates a cavity that allows the human ear to hear sounds that are normally discarded by the brain. But due to the enclosed space of the shell is an occlusion effect, similar to when you hold your ear under a cup. Damned odd if you ask me.
Jeff told me. I'm not quite sure if I follow you, I admitted.
Those shells that Hannah found, not a single one of them is making a noise.
Jeff told me. I grabbed one of the shells and put it to my ear. I heard that same fainting droning sound from earlier, It almost sounded like a voice. "Come," it said. "You both should get your ears checked. I can hear it as plain as day, and it kind of freaks me out too," I admitted. Jeff took a shell from my hand and tried it himself, shaking his head.
"No, I can't hear a thing,"
he admitted. I gave him an odd look, but didn't question it. The hour was late, and we both needed to get some sleep before a long drive tomorrow. I put the curious shell back down and drifted off to sleep in his arms. It didn't take long though before I heard the shuffling of little feet in the bathroom, and Hannah was running water in the tub. I sighed and stretched, trying to wake Jeff to go see what she was doing. I've always been a bit of a light sleeper, and since he had drove his part of the trip home, it had been my intention to handle the rest. That wouldn't be possible though if our daughter was up all night playing with the bathwater. I stood up and groggily walked to the dim light that peeked from underneath our door. "Hannah, it's late. You should get back into bed," I muttered as I moved to turn the handle. When the door opened, my world seemed to go still for a moment. I saw my daughter in the tub, naked and face down as she poured water on top of her head. It looked like she was deliberately holding herself there, intent to drown. "Hannah! What has gotten into you?" I screamed as I dashed over the tub and pulled her out. She was coughing and gagging, trying to gasp for air, but at the same time she kept pushing me away, trying again to hold herself under the rush of the water. "Jeff! Jeff, wake up!" I shouted as I pulled her, and she scratched me like a feral animal. Finally, I used all of my strength to wrap my arms around her and lift her up. Hannah kicked and shrieked as I did. As I pulled her back towards the bedroom, I turned to try to get Jeff's attention. Yet instead I saw what was sheets, tossed back, and my husband was nowhere in sight. Hannah somewhat managed to break loose from my grip and ran towards the open door. I called out to her, but she didn't listen. She just seemed to be running into the night, like she was mad. I grabbed my coat and looked towards the edge of the parking lot. Jeffrey was standing there, looking down at the swimming pool. Hannah was racing towards him and then squeezing at his hand. I almost relaxed. Then I saw them both plunge into the cold waters. I yelled at the top of my lungs. A flurry of raindrops hit me as I ran towards the pool. Both of them were just sinking to the bottom, not even fighting as the water pressure hit their lungs. I cried and screamed in confusion, desperate to understand what was happening. Then, both of their bodies became like ragdolls, drifting towards the surface. As they hit the edge of the pool, my own body went limp. I watched in stunned silence as the rain hit them and I screamed for the heavens. Something on the edge of my vision caught my attention though. The strange and peculiar shells that my daughter had dug up that same morning. That once both she and Jeff had claimed were silent. I remember the shrieks and the voice I heard from the shells. My hand trembled as I picked it up, trying to tie together the strange depths to this inanimate object. It seemed foolish. I held it close to my ear, looking like a crazed woman as I stared down at my baby's lifeless body. But this time, there was only silence inside.